Hello, all. I'm here today because I want to share a personal story from my past. Some of you have known me for a very, very long time, and you might know the circumstances around this story, but many of you have not known me for that long, and I felt that this story was something that can provide possibly some inspiration for folks because throughout our lives we get so busy um, running the rat race, making a living, that we forget sometimes to make a life. And this story is about one of those opportunities that is given to us throughout our lives and taking that opportunity and being persistent to achieve a goal. And this story, even though this happened to me 19 years ago, I can still remember every aspect of that day like it was yesterday. So, again, the purpose for me today is to share something with you to let you look at opportunities that come your way and to do something extraordinary. Um, Take a risk, meet those challenges, and continue forward. The persistency of the actions create the memorable experiences that define our lives. So this story is what I call my marathon story. Little background: this is happened in 1999. I was an air traffic controller at the time. I had been working as an air traffic controller for about 18 years. My health had deteriorated quite rapidly. I was extremely overweight. I weighed over 300 pounds. I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day, drank coffee continuously throughout the day, ate high fat foods, fast foods a lot with the job that I had, and drank heavily every kind of alcoholic beverage you possibly can on my off hours. Needless to say, I was not the picture of health. Um, my health started to decline. I decided it was time that I needed to do something because I felt I had some kind of a purpose that I still hadn't um, achieved at this point. Um, so I decided I was going to quit smoking. That was my first step. So in January 1st of that year, I quit smoking. But I had done that and tried many times before and failed. So I knew I needed something in place that would allow me to be successful in this one area. And I knew the first year I was going to have a lot of cravings. I've been smoking since I was 16 years old, and I needed something that can get me through that first year. So I was looking for something long term. I did a little research. I found a marathon training program through the Leukemia Society, and I decided that that could fit the bill. It was a marathon that was going to happen in Washington, D.C. in October of 1999. This was in April. I had already quit smoking for about 3 months, and I knew I needed some help at this point to keep going well. Plus, I needed some exercise in my life. I just needed to start living a little bit more healthy lifestyle. So I went to their meeting. And I'm sure when I showed up, I'm sure the Leukemia said took one look at me and I'm like, oh my God, this guy's a project. I don't know if he can do this. Like I said, I was extremely overweight. I was out of shape, just very, very unhealthy in a lot of areas. But they decided they could help me and they'd help me get off the couch basically and on the road. So the goal that we had decided for me, since I am not a runner, I'd never run in my life, and I was very overweight, was to implement a run-walk program to get through the 26.2 miles. So that was the goal, is we were going to do a run-walk program. So I was very excited. And like with any new endeavor, you have visions of what's going to happen at the end of this goal. I can see myself after running 26.2 miles and coming across that finish line, and my arms raised in triumph, waving to the adoring crowds, just like that was royalty and they were my subjects. Just this immense emotional burst when that comes out. And that's kind of how anything new. You're really excited, really pumped up, and you want to talk about it. You want to do all kinds of stuff. You have very, very maybe unrealistic expectations of the ending, but that's what gets you motivated to start. So that was my motivation. My first day out running, I lasted 15 seconds, and I was out of breath. I felt like I was going to have a heart attack. And I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? So my perspective changed a little bit. I decided, the long term goal was still to finish the marathon. But right now, I needed to work my way up running wise to where I can get to run 5 minutes at a time and then walk for a couple minutes to recoup and then repeat. And starting at 15 seconds, I had a little ways to go. So that was my goal. That's my daily goal, was to improve upon my run time every day. And so I did. I started working on it. And after about 3 months, I was doing good. I was up to 5 minutes running, 2 minutes of walking, repeating. I was doing more miles. I had gotten up to running 11 miles in one stint, one training session. Things were going well. Well, what happens a lot of times when you start to take on a project that is big for you, the universe will test you. And sure enough, it was time for my first test. Um, After one of my training runs, I was really, really hurting, and they didn't get better. And the next day, they were hurting on it. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor took a look at me, and he checked everything out, and they did X-rays and did all kinds of stuff. And basically, he came back and said, "You have stress fractured one of your feet, and the only way that's going to heal is for you to not pound on it, no impact on that foot for 3 months." So I was only 3 months away from the actual marathon run at that point. And so the doctor said to me straight up, she goes, "You're not going to run that marathon." And that's a huge blow. And for a lot of people, that could take you right out of the game. And all it is the universe's way to see if you have the intrinsic motivation to really go after and do what's necessary to do what you set out to do. And I remember listening to that doctor and saying, he just took the wind out of my sails and just blew my dream right away. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And I looked right at the doctor and I said, "You don't understand. I will run this marathon." And once he got it through his head that I was serious and I was not going to take no for an answer, he started brainstorming with me some other ideas, which sent me on a quest to find a personal trainer who specialized in endurance training and non-impact to my feet. So we discussed our plan. We decided what we were going to do. He set up a protocol for me to follow. I worked with him 3 to 4 days a week. The other 2 to 3 days a week, I had other exercises that he'd set aside for me that I'd go to the gym and do on my own. And so we did this for the next 3 months. So my feet healed. I wasn't impacting. I wasn't running on them. I wasn't doing any of that kind of stuff. It was all non-impact workouts, but it was all core building and endurance training. So now, fast forward to October 1999. I think it was October 23rd, 1999, day of the marathon. I have flown from San Diego, California to Washington, D.C. The run was going to be through all the monuments in Washington, D.C. Beautiful, beautiful place to run. Lots of viewing pleasure, lots of picture-taking opportunities. Wonderful. The excitement, not only from me, but from everyone, was just palpable. You could just feel it. Everyone was just so hyped up. So we were getting ready to start the race that morning. We're all getting lined up, and I got myself positioned kind of towards the back because I knew I wasn't going to be running fast. I wasn't there to compete against anybody else. This was a race for me. I was doing something for me personally. I was competing against myself. So right before the race started, they did make an announcement, and they said, "Okay, I want all the runners to know the bridge that crosses the Potomac River is closed to traffic until 1 p.m. for the race. But at 1 p.m. it's going to be reopened back up to the traffic. So if you haven't made the bridge and crossed the bridge by 1 p.m., a bus is going to come back around, pick you up, drive you across the bridge, and then drop you off on the other side of the bridge, and then you're going to have to run the last 4.5 miles to finish the marathon, but you're not going to get an official time because you didn't run that little span over the bridge." So our mantra of that day then became "No bus for us, no bus for us." Everything was about just making that bridge by 1 o'clock and making it an official time. So we started. The race started. The gun went off. People started running. I moved to the side. I let everybody run right on by. I'm just like, you know what? I'm doing my 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and that's where my mindset was. I had a certain time frame per mile that I needed to go in order to make that 1 o'clock time frame at the 21.5 mile mark is where the bridge was. So the first few miles went pretty smooth. I mean, I was already used to running up to 11 miles. So the first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 miles was great. By the time I got around to mile 8, I was running through Georgetown. And I'll remember it like it was yesterday. Two very dear friends, which I will never forget, Sharon and Maria, they came out to support us on this run. And they ended up being my angels throughout the day. This first meeting in Georgetown, it was fun. It was still early in the morning. They met us out there. They had coffee and churros and laughter, and we were just having a blast. We were chomping on the churros and drinking a little bit of coffee, talking and whatever. We got distracted and got off course. We weren't on the race route. We got lost in Georgetown. So the point of that is that, distractions are going to come at you at different times in your journey or whatever you're doing. Enjoy the distractions. They're part of the journey, but keep your focus. So found my way back onto the race course, started running again. Boom. Before I knew it, I was at mile 11. Mile 11 was right where the Washington Monument was. I'm like, stop, take a picture. It was fun. I took advantage of the whole day, the whole experience. And I remember at that point saying to myself, this is as far as I've ever run, because I had just fractured my feet. I never ran anything more than 11 miles. Everything was done in the gym, all non-impact stuff. So I hadn't physically run anything longer than 11 miles. And I remember at that point just saying, every step I take right now is the farthest I've ever run in my life. So every step was a celebration. Every step. I had taken my mindset off of the goal of the 26.2 miles and crossing the finish line, and now it was just a celebration with every step along the way. Before I knew it, I was at the halfway point, 13.1 miles. Boom, I was there. I was feeling great. You get euphoric. You feel like you're Superman. You can do anything. And that's when the universe decides to challenge you again, just to see. We're going to test you. We're going to see if you have the resolve to do what you set out to do. So at mile 14, there was an aid station. And they had the typical oranges, Gatorade, bagels, all that kind of stuff. And one thing they do tell you when you're in training, especially the first time you've done it, is that on race day, you should never intake stuff that you haven't trained with through your months of training, because you don't know how your body's going to respond to it. It might be good as far as a good food, but you haven't trained with that, so your body might have an adverse reaction to that. Hey, I was feeling like I can do no wrong at this point. I came up to the aid station. They had bagels. I love bagels. Hadn't trained with them, but I'm like, you know what? They're good for you. I'm going to grab one. Grab one, kept on running. Big mistake. Big mistake. By mile 15, my stomach felt like an unbalanced washing machine, and I was about to lose it. And I was like, oh God, I have to find a porta potty here pretty dang quick, because if I don't, we're going to have a really nasty situation here on the race course. By mile 16, I found the porta potty. Boom, beelined right for it. This wasn't going to be a quick little pee break. I mean, I was going to have to get rid of this alien bagel that had inhabited my body. And I did. And it didn't take very long. And boy, I tell you, felt great and felt bad at the same time. Because I noticed, I'd only been in there a few minutes, but I noticed my legs started cramping up right away. So I was like, I gotta get out of here. So I got out of there and I started running, and my legs would not cooperate. They were like not connected to the rest of my body. I felt like I was two people, and my brain was telling my legs to do something, and they weren't doing it. I just said, I'm just going to keep putting one step in front of the other, one step in front of the other, just like that, one step at a time. 26.2 miles equates out to about 78,600 steps. I was just chalking off one of those steps at a time, one of those steps at a time. I fought that battle for the next couple miles, and we get to mile 18. Mile 18 for marathon runners or people that have been involved around marathons know that that's what they call kind of the hit the wall point. I had already physically hit the wall 2 miles before that at mile 16, and I've been fighting through that physical part of it for that 2 miles. But at mile 18, emotionally, it's when it hit, because I realized at that point my pace had slowed so much that I probably was not going to make the bridge. But I decided I was there to do something. I was doing this for myself. I'm going to go as far as I can go. So I kept on pushing through it, and I kept on pushing through it. And by the time I got to mile 20, I had resigned myself to the fact that I was going to get picked up by the bus, because it was 1 o'clock. And that's when they said it was, and I was still a mile and a half away, and I hadn't made it. But I said, I'm going to keep on going until I see the bus. I'm just going to keep on going. And then a miracle happened. My 2 friends, Sharon and Maria, came out of nowhere, dressed in their street clothes, backpacks on their back. They come running up to me on the race course. I've got one on each side of me, and they're like, come on, Tom, you can do this. They said they're going to keep the bridge open 10 more minutes. 10 more minutes. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And I'm like, a mile and a half in 10 minutes? I've never run that fast in my life. Plus, I've already done 20 miles. I'm tired, and my legs aren't working. And they're like, come on, we can do it, we can do it. I'm so, okay. And I just put everything out of my mind, and I just did it. And they ran alongside of me, cheering me along all the way. And for that next mile and a half, we asked every one of the race staffers that were on the sideline, are we going to make it? Are we going to make it? Are we going to make the bridge on time? And all of them gave us this, no commitment, no reason to quit. You had to keep going. There was no other option. And so I ran like my life depended on it. I came around this bend, and I can see the police car. It was at the bottom of the bridge. It was getting ready to block it off. And I'm yelling, I'm coming. Don't close the bridge. Don't close the bridge. And they could hear me, because I was like, I might just ran a mile and a half in 10 minutes. I was like the fastest I've ever done in my life. It's like, you're getting me on that dang bridge. So he waited. And as soon as I passed and got past the police car, he backed at the police car and he blocked the bridge for the runners. I was the last one to get on the bridge. So I get on there, sigh of relief, and I'm celebrating. I stop. I'm going to walk for a little bit and recuperate, because I just ran a mile and a half as fast as I could, and I was winded. And then the reality set in. After I'm walking on the bridge for a little bit, I'm like, oh man, I still got 4.5 more miles to go. I'm like, let's finish this thing off. Let's go. So I started running, and I started seeing things differently at that point. All of a sudden, I started noticing the trees and the grass and the flowers and the other people, the other runners, and all the cheering crowd. I saw them before, but not really saw them. And I was seeing things from a different light. I was getting out of my own egocentric self and my needs and what I needed, and started taking in the overall environment. And I came across this woman who was bent over and looked like she was going to get sick. And I'm like, are you okay? And what can I do? And she said, I ran out of food. I need some food. I need energy. And I'm like, here's a protein bar. Let's walk for a little bit while you're eating it. And she started feeling better. Color came back into her face. And I said, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I think I'm okay. And I said, well, okay, I'm out. I got to go. And I took off and bid her a farewell. Went down the road a little bit further, came across a guy who was just like holding his head, and he was like, oh, it looked like he was in so much pain. I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, I don't know, but my head is pounding. He's like, I need some Advil or something. I said, well, I have some. So I gave him some Advil, and I said, I hope this helps. And I head on down the road. Kept on running. At mile 25, I came across a young girl. She was early 20s, in very good shape, but she had obviously twisted her ankle really badly, and she wasn't able to put any kind of weight on one of her feet. She had helpers, family and friends, I am assuming, on each side of her, holding her up as she hopped for that last mile to finish the race. That was her journey. That was her struggle. That was her universe's hurdle that was thrown in her way, and she made that decision that I'm going to hop on one foot and I'm going to finish this dang thing. That's when I realized, we all have our own personal journeys, our own personal struggles that we have to deal with, and it's the persistency and consistency of our will that will make the difference, and whether we do it or we don't, whether we make a memory for life or whether we don't. At that point, I was just like, the last mile was nothing. I just cruised right on in. Now, when I crossed the finish line, was it like I envisioned 6 months prior when I started? Heck no. It was not like, yeah. I was like, oh, thank you, I'm done. Get off my feet. All I wanted was an ice bath and a bed. But he had the cheering crowds, and it was all very nice and all that. And it was just like, okay, I want this to be over. It was one of the defining moments in my life from the perspective of doing something challenging that was something I'd never done in my life, that was going to extremely test me, and overcoming every hurdle along the way through the training process and through the race itself to finish that race. That one day taught me that we can do anything. Each one of us has the ability to do anything. And what I would like to put out to you at this point is that when those opportunities come into your life, take a break for a minute from your busy life and take a few deep breaths and say, maybe it's time for me to make a life moment. I've been busy making my living. Let's make a life moment and go out and do it. You're worth it. Be extraordinary.